All right, Vancouver housing bubble. It's been a while since I've touched on this topic. The idea is that prices have become way out of whack with local incomes, and they're going to have to revert to the mean, what the typical blue collar wage earner can afford, which I don't know, you're probably looking at an 80% price crash for that to happen. But I had a guy call me here. He said, Jay, I've been watching your videos since 2022. And you've been saying that you need to get in where you can, come hell or high water. You need to compromise, buy what you can afford. Your first home is not your dream home. It's a stepping stone. It's a way to get into the market and start building equity. And this guy was in his 30s, a CPA, and he took that advice. He realized he was probably not going to afford in Vancouver, even though he makes, well, as a CPA, he's probably making a six-figure income. But he decided to move to Edmonton, okay? And he bought a large three-bedroom townhome. He tells me it's absolutely beautiful and a great neighborhood for $363,000. 363. So I'm not privy to what this guy makes, but he might even have dual incomes as well. You're probably looking at 3 or 4 times your annualized income to buy that home. And that's what you'll find in Canada, whether it's Edmonton or Winnipeg or Calgary. Most of these markets are going to be in alignment with local incomes. But when you get to a city like Vancouver, extremely desirable, we're landlocked, we're surrounded by oceans, mountains, agricultural land reserve. Obviously, those prices are going to become way detached from what the average person or even what a lawyer or a CPA can afford here. So last time I looked, Vancouver, if we look at the price to income ratio, it's around 11 times. So it takes you about 11 times your incomes to buy a home in Vancouver. That's fairly expensive for North America, but globally, we're in the middle of the pack here for waterfront international cities. There are many European and Asiatic cities around the world that can easily go 20, 30, 40 times income. So, I see these articles all the time. Vancouver, most expensive, most unaffordable city in the world. And people like to complain about that, but they haven't done their homework on this. We're at the middle of the pack here. The other point I'll make is that Vancouver is driven primarily by equity. It's not really local incomes. It's people that bought in 30, 40 years ago and slowly rode their way up. Bob Rennie, the condo king, went on the record here. He says that there's over $440 billion, that's billion with a B, in Metro Vancouver of clear title equity, no mortgage. Which brings me to my next point. You guys on the outside looking in, you can't reconcile what you personally make and the price of real estate. So in a lot of the comments I get here, people must be way over leveraged. They've taken on an irresponsible amount of debt. They're highly leveraged. It's unsustainable and the market has to crash here. Well, that hasn't been my experience as a realtor. My clients anyway, they're not taking on high ratio mortgages. They're putting 20, 25, 30% down. Amazing how many all cash buyers there are out there. And it's all based on equity that's been accumulated over many, many decades. It's intergenerational wealth. Another thing these people will throw out there is what's called the debt to income ratio. And in Canada, that's around 180%. What that means is that you owe $1.80 for every dollar earned. And that's a scary stat on the surface until you realize that the vast majority of this is mortgages and lines of credit. So you're financing this at a very favorable interest rate over 25 years. This is not high interest credit card debt and car loans. There is some of that, but the vast majority of it is mortgages that are secured against an asset. But let's assume you do have $180,000 in mortgage debt in Vancouver. Well, the typical home, the average price is around $1,250,000. So your net worth is still over $1 million. You have to look at your assets minus your liabilities. And that's another point too. There's a lot of you got to look at their assets in total. Many of these people have $2 or $3 million homes. They've got investment properties. They've got stock portfolios, RRSPs. So you have to factor that into the equation as well. But those of you guys that think that Vancouver homeowners are over leveraged, well, most of them are on the outside looking in. They've never gone into the Royal Bank or Scotia or TD and been qualified for a mortgage. Many of them, brass tacks here, they would be laughed out of the bank. They've never gone through the hurdles and submitted the documentation and realized what it actually takes to get into this market. Most people are way off. They think they can qualify for $1.8 million. When I run them through my broker, it's usually around 1.2 or 1.3 million. So they have no idea what it takes. With the stress test and all the safeguards in place, you basically can't over leverage. A lot of these people don't seem to understand that. But it's incredibly difficult to get a mortgage in Canada. It's been getting harder. Look at what we've been through here, though. We had the 2008 financial crisis, the complete meltdown in the U.S. of all the major banks here, Bear Stearns and Morgan Stanley, and the complete stock market crash. The Vancouver market corrected a bit, but it recovered in just a few years. More recently, we had a global pandemic, complete shutdown of the global economy, followed by the fastest rate tightening cycle in many decades here. And the Vancouver market barely blinked. At one point, we were off around 10% in aggregate. But as I speak right now, we've recouped most of those losses. So that's a testament to how strong the foundation and how robust this market is. So buy in where you can. I'm not saying you need to move to Edmonton or Winnipeg. There are opportunities that are, a 30-minute, 40-minute drive outside of Vancouver. There's still reasonably affordable markets, and there's value all over the place, okay? But get in where you can, start building equity. You guys that are waiting for this mythical 50 to 60% crash in home prices, I think you're going to be very disappointed. Don't get me wrong, we're going to have corrections here. We just had one. Typically, they're about 10 or 15%, and then the market always recovers, okay? I'm Jay Coupar. Feel free to comment below or subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.